Well, the title of my message today is Be Love Anyway. It came to my attention recently that there's something called the Paradoxical commandments. You may have heard it. It's frequently attributed to Mother Teresa, but in actuality, it was written by Heath. And it goes like this. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just a few lines to get us started. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. Now, one of the things that comes up for me as I read that statement is that I could very well personalize that. And I could say, I am illogical at times. At times I am unreasonable. And at times I am self-centered. Knowing this to be true, I choose to love myself anyway. And that really is more in alignment with what we believe. That as I believe, so it is. And so a very hard truth about the teaching of the science of mind is that we always get what we believe. Now, the way that consciousness works and the way that we are as individuals makes it very difficult for us to discern frequently what it is that we really, really, really believe. Probably other people around us, especially those that are close to us or that we work with or our family, can tell us a lot of things about how illogical, how unreasonable, and self-centered we are. And possibly, it would really behoove us to listen to that. No? Okay. So it is. Because, as you know or may know, that the majority of our beliefs are below our level of conscious awareness. And so how the heck is it then that I am going to know what it is that I really, really believe? Well, since I always get what I believe, all I have to do is look at what my experiences are. Now, in addition to that, it's not just what my experience is, it's how I feel about it. That's where the juice is. That's where the main information is for me, because someone else could be having the same experience and their take on it could be completely different than mine. They could go, no big deal. Oh, that's just a little bump in the road. And I could be tearing my hair out, consciously or unconsciously. If you do well, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. Do well anyway. If you are successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. Have most of you heard this? Okay, so what we're looking at is the concept and the practice of be love anyway. So what the call for that is, no matter what I'm faced with, no matter what I feel about it, the call is to be love anyway. Now, when I say love, let me clarify that I don't mean that does not mean let people walk all over you. That does not mean don't speak up. That does not mean don't state your preference. And that's all that is where the rubber hits the road. Because, you know, we can just go, doesn't bother me, doesn't bother me.
Right?
And down here is going, So the first place that I want to suggest to start is sometimes I'm illogical. Sometimes I'm unreasonable. Sometimes I'm self-centered. I choose to love myself anyway. Now, in my emotional makeup, what begins to happen for me when I use that practice is that there's a big old sigh. And an openness within my mind that is free. So actually, this message, this idea about be love anyway is very, very much tied in to the practice, to the principle of freedom. So I want to talk about that for a moment. Dr. Holmes says in the Science of Mind textbook, to suppose that the creative intelligence of the universe would create us in bondage and then to leave us bound would be to dishonor the creative power which we call God. Then he goes on to say, and to suppose that God could make man as an individual without leaving him free to discover him or herself would be to suppose an impossibility. For individuality must be spontaneous. It can never be automatic. The seed of freedom is planted deep in the soil of every individual, but each person must make the discovery for themselves. So what a gift that we have been given, this gift of choice. That I can choose to smile, that I can choose to be conscious of how I really feel about a situation, that I can choose to do my own healing work, to embody, to generate, to know, well, what is the greater idea here? What is the spiritual principle? Remember, I used to ask you that all the time. What is the spiritual principle? What is the spiritual truth about this? Now, I've been reading, and I have shared this book with a couple of people. I had it on my bookshelf for probably 15 years. One of the reasons that I knew that was by the price. And it's called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. And I want to share a sentence that he writes early on in this book that yesterday, as I started to read it again, really grabbed my attention. He says, no one should be satisfied with a little if he or she is capable of more. So for me, the optimum word there is, what am I capable of? I need not be satisfied with a little if I am capable of more, having more, using more, circulating more, giving more, being more. And that's why I asked you to, in this healing meditation, to focus on what is it that I have to give. Because as soon as we shift our awareness from what I want to what it is that I have to give, a whole new world opens up. You know, and you could just say simply, we're focusing on the positive than the negative. That we can go around saying, I want this, or I desire that, or we can always be focusing on what it is that we want to manifest next. But I'm suggesting the possibility that we're not using what we already have. And that when we begin to use what we have, the responsive nature of God gives us more. Many years I heard Dr. Carolyn talk about the idea of don't settle for less. Are you settling for less from yourself? Are you capable of having more in your, are you capable, first of all, of having more of yourself? And what parts of yourself are desiring to come forward and express that you're already aware of? Are you capable of having more money? Not do you want more money. Are you capable of having more money? If you had more money, if you had a lot more money, what would you do with it? How would you use it? How would you give it? How would you save it? How would you spend it? Are you capable? That's the question. So amazing that once we decide, I'm capable of that, then the next thing is, well, what is it that I have to give? Because as soon as I give, the responsive nature, I'm not even going to say of the universe, because God created the universe. So this is just my own little pet peeve. You know, the universe gave it to me. Well, where do you think the universe came from? The invisible nature of the divine essence of life, God, good, wholeness, freedom, joy, creativity, abundance. This is what we are. When he says to suppose that the creative intelligence of the universe would create man in bondage and then leave him bound, is to dishonor this thing that we call God. Right. We have every single thing that we need to give more, to be more. There's a French critic and essayist called Andrew Gide, and he died in 1951, and he wrote this: "One does not discover new lands without consenting to lose sight of the shore for a very long time." Now, obviously, he was talking about explorers in one sense. But how can we take that and use it metaphorically? Was he speaking literally? Was he giving us something deeper to contemplate? In order to expand our capability and our territory of having more, what is it that we need to let go of? And one of the things that I would suggest is that we need to let go of little thinking, littleness, pettiness, caring so much what other people think about us, harboring things about people being unreasonable with us, letting go of our own negative self-perceptions of who we are. These are some of the things that come up for me when I think about what is it that what's the shore that I need to let go of? There's a beautiful worksheet that some of you may have seen in any classes at the center, or that Reverend Eileen may have shared with you, and it's called the Sphere of Availability. And it shows this little doughboy person standing in a circle, looking outside of the circle. There's the edge of the circle, but there's also, coming right out of the eyes of this little character, is this vision that moves out beyond the edges of the circle. But frequently, within the self are all of these beliefs and things that say, stay safe.
Mm-hmm. Safe.
What if you risk and you lose? Love anyway. Give anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. We are infinite beings. We're not finite. There's not an end of the road that says, well, I've come here, I have my nest egg, I have this, I have this. If you are at all open to the movement of God in your life, God's going to get in there and God's going to stir things up in you. And God's going to say things like, are you capable of more? What do you want? There's no end. There's really not even any such thing as retirement. There is no such thing as death. Simply a changing forms. A change of forms. Jesus said, I have come. Jesus, for the purpose of my speaking right now, is a universal consciousness that lives within each one of us. And so within each one of us, there is the anointed one. There is the Christ that is from within, says, I have come so that you might have life, and so that you might have it more abundantly, more abundantly. Now, do you think that archetypal being within every individual, call it Jesus or Buddha or Atman or whatever it is that you want to call it, whatever resonates for you, do you believe that it says, oh no, you've given enough, you've done enough, you've accomplished enough, just sit back and relax and let the stream just flow on by? I don't think so. I know. But how boring. How not like living that is. You know, in the Declaration of Independence that was authored by Thomas Jefferson, this, you know, there's evolution. And this was a time, this was an evolving idea whose time had come about freedom. Freedom to chart your own course. Freedom to be more. Freedom to think your own thoughts and bring forward the best that you have. And so this document would change the course of history from that moment on. Not just in the United States, but across the globe. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable. So I looked it up. Given to us by the Creator. Permanent, absolute, just as is the Creator. They are a part of us and cannot be taken away. So the declaration was acknowledging that there is a part of us that is God, a part of us that is changeless being, a part of us that is spirit and all of the qualities that go with that. And then it goes on to say, created with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, the freedom to choose, and the pursuit of happiness. It doesn't say that it ends. So, like it or not, humanity, which includes each one of us, is condemned to freedom. It's the way it is. And our choice to not be aware of that, to not practice it, to not do our spiritual work and our spiritual practices around that, can either put us in bondage because we're free to do so, or it can free us. Now, we all know what it feels like to withhold love, to harbor resentments. And I also acknowledge that there's nothing wrong with going through that. But as you may have heard, we do not stop and build condominiums along the way.
No content.
Jesus said, yea, though I walk. I'm not supposed to do this. Well, okay. Yea, though I walk. Sometimes I crawl, sometimes I'm groveling, sometimes I'm complaining, but I'm conscious.
Right.
And I know that I reap as I sow. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Oh, this is so painful. This is an awful thing I'm going through. I'm really sad about this. I'm really torn up about this. I'm really angry about this. Or the worst, I think this will never change. What if this never changes? Yeah, I see it on your face. Be love anyway. Be love anyway. Accept it. Because, I didn't get through. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, fear no evil, for God is with me. What is God? God is an alive presence that is changeless, being, and good. God is a seed of truth that lives within me. God is always speaking to me through my intuition. So one of the things that I want to suggest for us is that we give up the need to be so independent. That we give up the need to do it alone. That we give up the need to figure it out. That we give up the need to get busy to avoid our feelings. Or whatever it is that we do to avoid our feelings. That we sit down in the presence of our feelings and that we ask God, that we ask our higher self, what is the truth here? Some people talk about the idea that, I don't know God's voice. How do I know if what I'm hearing is God's voice or not? So I looked up in the glossary of the Science of Mind textbook, and Ernest Holmes defines intuition as the voice of God within each one of us, revealing the realities of being. And I went back and I looked at it again and I said, well, you know, this is a reality, that's a reality. Is that what he's talking about? No, because they're all capitalized. The true reality. The reality that he's talking about is there is only love. There is only love. You know, there is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. That's the reality he's talking about. So when I sit down with my stirred up self, and my own voice, the voice of my own intuition says, relax. There's nothing wrong here. Really? Well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? I mean, you guys don't have anything on me. You don't do it any better than I do it. Christine, there's nothing wrong here. This actually comes from another New Thought teaching. There's nothing wrong here, number one. Number two, no one is to blame, not even myself. Depending upon the situation, it might be especially myself. Because when I can let myself off the hook, then I open to the consciousness of love where I can let others off the hook. Where I can say, hey, I don't really know everything that's going on here. But my mind can sure get busy going down the road of telling me what it thinks it knows and making it the ultimate truth. So there's nothing wrong here. No one is to blame. Well, I guess that I can open to that. I think I can begin to wrap my mind around that. Wow, I'm feeling better already. I'm feeling more love, acceptance. What if it never changes? Well, it wouldn't be my preference, but I can be love anyway. Which is automatically I'm doing the third thing, which is how can I look at this differently? So it's kind of like a spiritual mind treatment, you know. God is, I am, stating in the affirmative what it is that I have to give, what the spiritual truth is about any situation. Wow. When I go, yeah, that's the truth, I automatically start to feel grateful. And then I can see different. Isn't that amazing? And then I can let it go and be love anyway. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness make you vulnerable. Be honest and frank anyway. The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favor underdogs but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs once in a while.
Yeah.
What you spend your years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help, but may attack you if you help them. Help people anyway. Give the world the best that you have and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Give the world the best that you have anyway. I know that you are love. Each one of you. I know that you have been created in and out of this infinite spirit, that it gives of itself by means of you. That's what you are. God is love, and so are you. Namaste.
Namaste.